All right. Hey guys, Brad here. The purpose of this video is I want to set your expectations. I want to make sure you have a realistic understanding of how these contracts work as far as your earning potential. And I also want to set your expectations for my process so you understand how this works. All right. So I've compiled a couple of ideas that I want to lay on you right now. All right. I want to explain roughly 4 different contract types that we get now. So this is going to address what is the earning potential. Now, listen, before I dive into this information, I got to let you know something. The experienced drivers, I'm talking about guys with full size cargo vans that have done final mile delivery work before, you already understand this stuff. Some of the key points that I'm going to cover are things that an experienced driver already knows. So if I'm having to explain it to you, this is fine. It just means you don't have a lot of experience. And you know what? When I got my cargo van and I had no experience and somebody gave me a chance and I excelled at it and I became good at it and I eventually moved my way up. So now I'm an actual recruiter. But my origins into this business are as a courier cargo van owner operator. I've driven for T-Force and I drove for Flash Delivery. And now I am a full-time recruiter. So, guys with experience, you're still going to benefit from this probably because the answer to so many of the common questions, the real answer is it depends because it really does. And it makes me sound like I'm being wishy-washy because I'm not being direct. I cannot tell you exactly how many miles you'll be driving. I cannot tell you exactly how many hours you'll be working in a day. I cannot tell you exactly how much money you'll be making. What I can do, though, is give you some parameters. And knowing these parameters is going to help your expectations big time. All right, so let's start with what everybody wants to know, which is how much money can you make doing this? So let's take a look at our different contract types. So the standard contract out of our Beltsville warehouse pays a guaranteed daily minimum $200 a day, Monday through Friday, for up to 72 pieces. Every piece of freight that you deliver that is over 72 pieces, you're going to earn $2.50 per each additional piece over 72. So in other words, when you get to number 73, from then on, you're going to make an additional $2.50 per piece above the $200 a day. Now, what if we are really slow and we don't have a lot of freight and I only have 40 pieces or 50 pieces or 37 pieces of freight? Well, guess what? We are guaranteeing your pay rate at $200 a day minimum guarantee. That means no matter what, you're making $200 a day gross, which it comes out to $1,000 a week, or you could look at it as roughly $4,000 a month. That is the bare minimum. Okay. So if you contract with us and you come in and get a contract out of our Beltsville warehouse for your full size cargo van, you're going to make a minimum of $200 a day. Now, this goes right into the typical question. It's like, well, how many hours is a route? Well, first of all, you don't come in and just get a route. You come in as a floater. We use you where we need to use you. And we base that partly on where you live. For example, if you live in Baltimore, we are not going to send you to Virginia to be our Virginia float because that's ridiculous. You still have to drive all the way to our Beltsville warehouse to get the freight. Then in this example, you'd be going all the way out to Virginia to do your route. And then when you're done, you'd have to drive 60 miles from, somewhere in Virginia all the way to Baltimore. So we're not going to do that to you. You may come in from Baltimore and you might get a contract as a Baltimore floater. Or maybe you live in Hyattsville and you come in and you get a contract as a DC floater. Or my favorite of all is when you live in Northern Virginia somewhere and you're going to come in as a Virginia floater. So the idea is you come to the warehouse in the morning as a floater and you pick up your freight and you go somewhere in the general area that we have agreed you are going to service. Once you have demonstrated that you know how to deliver without making missed deliveries and that you know how to talk to my dispatchers, what I mean by that is you're going to have to talk to my dispatchers at some point sooner or later. And when you're on the phone with them, they need to be able to understand what you're saying. They need to be able to communicate clearly with you. and you cannot be giving them attitude, even if they give you attitude, because everybody's susceptible to having a bad day or having a bad attitude. Sometimes you may experience a dispatcher you think is being a little rough on you. You still have to hold yourself in a high level of professionalism. The guys that can do that are the ones that we want to get on a dedicated route. But everybody that comes into the business as a floater, with a few exceptions. But I'm talking about the Beltsville warehouse. You come in as a floater, we start giving you freight, and we give you a guaranteed minimum of $200 a day, and we see how you do. If you do really well, that is going to open the door for you getting your own dedicated route. Now, the payment for a dedicated route is the same as the payment for a floater. The difference is when you're on a dedicated route, you're going to get very familiar with your routine on a daily basis. You're going to get very familiar with the traffic patterns for that route. You're going to get familiar with the buildings, certain buildings that you have to go in and out of for that route. And what this is going to do is going to speed up your time. So when you have a dedicated route, you're going to become more efficient. And the best part about having a dedicated route is when the freight levels increase, your route fills up with freight. That is your freight. So when things get really busy and you've got 100 pieces of freight, you're definitely making 270 that day. And there are days where it's much above 100 pieces on a route. There have been routes that go out with 170 pieces, 160, 150. Do the math. Anything over 72, multiply it by $2.50 and add that to the 200. Okay, so some days, I'm giving you full disclaimer, by the way. I'm being completely transparent and honest with you because I'm a former driver and I wish somebody had taken the time to make a video like this one before I started my journey as a cargo van owner operator. So I'm doing that for you now. So some days you might run the same exact route you ran the day before, but for whatever reason, the freight is very spread out. So you might end up doing 120 miles in a single day. Facts. That can totally happen. Okay. Then you come in the next day. And by the way, let's say you only did 72 pieces on the nose and you drove 120 miles and it took you 9 hours. I mean, that's a bad day, but that's going to happen. 120 miles, 9 hours, $200. The very next day you come in, if the freight levels are very low, we might send you out with 38 pieces of freight. You're still making the same $200 and maybe you only drove 65 miles. So you're making the same money, but from day to day, the mileage is going to be different and the amount of time that you're putting in this is going to be different. So if you're a professional driver with years under your belt doing final mile delivery, you already know this. The key to being professional is do not look at the day-to-day performance. Look at it from week to week. And really, you should be looking at it month to month. And what I mean by that is if the average minimum is $1,000 a week, which it is if you're making $200 a day minimum, that means throughout the course of 1 week, your minimum, and that's if you have a terrible week and never go over your 72 package count, you're going to make $1,000 that week. But it's very unusual to just go consecutive weeks only making the minimum. There's going to be a time where you're going to go over your minimum, and that's when you make the money. And sometimes that route is going to be easy and the traffic is going to be in your favor, and maybe the weather is nice and everything flows and you knock it out and make that money in 6 hours, 7 hours. And the very next day, it might be 9 hours. I'm just being honest with you. That's the way this business goes. When guys ask me too many questions, I need to know how many hours I'm going to be working. I need to know how many miles it is. I need to know exactly where I'll be delivering to. My friend, you are describing a job. If you need to know all those things, I know this is going to sound like I'm being a smart aleck, but I'm just being honest. If you need to know all these things, go drive for Amazon as an employee because they will tell you exactly what you're doing. You show up at a certain time, you're going to work for a certain amount of hours, and you're going to come back to the station at a certain time. You have a limit to what you're going to make, but at least you know exactly what you're doing. So this is not that. This is a contractor, owner, operator, okay? You got to keep that in mind at all times. All right, let's go to the next contract type we have. $273 a day guaranteed minimum out of our Landover warehouse. I'm not going to talk too much about the details of this contract, but I just want you to know about the payment. $273 guaranteed minimum daily pay, up to 78 pieces. For each piece that you deliver that's over 78 pieces, you're going to earn $3.50 per piece. So, for example, if you are operating out of our Landover warehouse, you have the potential to earn $350 on days that you deliver 100 pieces. This is just an example. There are days guys take out 130 pieces. There are days or weeks where you go the whole week and you never go over your minimum. Freight goes up and down like a yo-yo. It's also seasonal. It depends what time of year it is. So again, the answer to most of your questions is it depends. And it really does. So, but I want you to know that that is the parameters for this contract out of the Landover warehouse. Another interesting thing about the difference between the Landover warehouse and the Beltsville warehouse, if I bring you in and consider you for a Beltsville warehouse contract, it is for sure Monday through Friday. The Landover warehouse, we have different requirements. So sometimes I'll start a guy 4 days a week. And when it's 4 days a week, it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then there are instances where I'll bring a guy on this contract and I can only start him on Monday and Tuesday. Now, the way it works is if you do a great job, you don't do any missed deliveries, you show up every morning at the time that we're asking you to, you know how to talk to my dispatchers and you're not being rude, you're being professional at all times, even if they might not be. If you are and you stay pro, we are going to make sure you get an additional day. For example, if you came in on a Monday and Tuesday arrangement and you're good, it's not going to take long before we give you another day. We want to give you what you want if we believe you are a high quality professional delivery driver. Now, I have a guy in the Landover warehouse doing 7 days a week in a Chevy Express 2500 cargo van. He's grossing over $8,000 a month. Most guys cannot handle that. This guy is special. Maybe that's you. Maybe you can be the next guy that comes in and blows my mind and ends up delivering 7 days a week. And you're going to break 100,000 in a year. There are guys that do that. Now, I'll be honest with you, that's rare. The average that guys make is between 60 to 80,000 a year. If you're committed and you're professional and you don't fight the fact that freight goes up and down like a yo-yo, you have to roll with it. Some days are going to suck and some days are going to be so great and easy. The trick is when they have a shitty day, excuse me, I'm just speaking freely to you. When you have a bad day, don't let it get you down because it's not going to stay like that. And also, when you have an amazing day and you're like, oh my God, I made $273. I was only out there for 5 hours, because you may have a day like that. Don't get used to it. There is a median. There is a median. And part of that depends on you and how much quality that you're bringing to the table and how professional you are. Okay. So remember that. I'm setting your expectations. Okay. So another type of contract that we have is a standard contract out of various Walmart locations. Now, this is again is a little different than the previous two contracts. This contract has a set amount, period. It has a set daily rate at $220 a day. The difference is you're not coming to our warehouse. You're not going to our partner's warehouse in Landover. You are going directly to a Walmart warehouse, and there are many of them in the area right now. We have 3 of them. And you pull up your van in the morning at 8 a.m. sharp, they are going to give you somewhere between 50 at least. And sometimes it is only 50, but it's going to be between 50 and maximum of 100 pieces. And you're going to be delivering them in the surrounding areas of where that warehouse is located. So this is kind of cool because I like to find drivers that live in those areas, because that way you're not coming to report to me at the warehouse. You're going directly to their warehouse, picking up the freight at 8 a.m., and then you're delivering it in the surrounding areas of that warehouse. So overall, it is not going to be as many miles as these other two contracts. But then again, in exchange for that, you're capping the daily rate at $220, which, hey, that's still $1,100 a week guaranteed. And you're going to have some days that are 5-hour days, and you're going to have some days that are 10-hour days. And you're going to think, when you have a 5-hour day, you're going to go, man, this is the greatest thing ever. I just worked 5 hours, got $220. The next day, you might work 10 hours to make the same $220. So again, you see the theme here is don't get too happy when it's amazing and don't get too upset or depressed when it's not amazing and it sucks, because what you want to do is look at it week to week, and you really want to look at it month to month. I mean, if you're on your way to 70,000 a year, you are still going to have some days that totally suck. So, but if I just tell you about the 70,000 a year part, you're going to just go, this is great. But I'm not going to do that to you because I'm being real. I'm being honest. I'm being transparent because I am you. I'm you. I'm a former driver that started with nothing, and now I'm a recruiter in the game. So I want you to succeed. I want to support you. And the way to do that is by being honest with you. Okay. Final contract, medical. I'm not going to talk too much about this. We do get medical contracts. They're typically for cars and small SUVs. Those are ideal. We very, very rarely need a van for a car for a medical route. Really, a four-door sedan is ideal, or a small SUV like a RAV4, etc. And the deal with the medical, I can't even really speak too much about the medical routes because they just don't have any consistency. They're all over it. We take it on a case by case basis. I have medical routes that pay as little as $50 and take 3 hours. And I have another medical route that is paying 170 a day and it takes 6 hours. Of course, those routes have long ago been filled. People tend to stick on those routes. It's the cargo vans is really where the opportunity is for you with me. Okay. So hopefully I've given you a very good idea of whether or not this work is for you or not. If you're okay with this payment, with the fact that I can't tell you exactly what you're made, but if you're cool with the parameters that I've given you, I want to tell you about my process real quick. So the deal is once you filled out my form, okay, and I've got your information in my database, now I can consider you for an opportunity. First step is to get in my database. Second step is to provide me with your documentation. You're going to receive an additional email that describes in great detail what are the documents that I need from you in order to be qualified to do this work. This all takes time. You can read my email and it tells you exactly what kind of docs, but yet guys still present the wrong docs. Well, guess what? If I have an opportunity for you and I'm telling you about it, and then I say, yeah, I want to offer you this opportunity, but you have to give me your documentation, and you get me the wrong documentation. And then I tell you what you need to correct it. And by then 2 days have gone by. I'm not waiting 2 days to fill a contract. I don't have that luxury. So I am always filling a contract with guys that are ready and have their correct documentation already submitted to me. Now, I'm making this as easy as I can for you guys. There's going to be an email that comes through to you that has a link in it, and that is where you upload your documents to me. And in that same email that has the upload link is a full explanation of the documents. Pay extra attention to the insurance documents. I actually made a short video talking about insurance documents because so many guys were getting me the wrong document. I made a video. Do not shoot yourself in the foot by getting me wrong documentation. I'm telling you, that's how I fill the opportunities. I tell everybody the same thing. If you have a cargo van, if you have experience, I'm going to definitely look at you harder than I am somebody that's brand new with no experience, although I do consider everybody. If you have experience, you own and operate a full-size cargo van, and you get me the right documents. That's key. The third thing that I consider is where you live. So you have to understand, I cannot tell you for sure if I'm going to give you a contract if I don't even know where you live yet. And even once I do know where you live, do I have all your documents? And what does your experience look like? Because I love filling contracts with guys that have the right experience, have the right vehicle, produced all of their documents for me, understand this process, and you got to be patient. Because when I speak to you on Monday and say, yeah, I got 2 available contracts, and I don't get all your docs and we don't have another conversation until Wednesday, I might have filled those contracts on Tuesday with the 2 guys that I talked to on Friday that sent me their documents over the weekend. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is it is very difficult for me to tell you for sure what is going to happen. But what I can tell you very clearly is what my process is about. So if you follow my process along, now look, you could still do everything exactly right in my process. And by the time I get to you and you've got all the documents in, by the time I get to you, I have already filled the available route. So then what happens, I don't want you to be discouraged. I want you to be patient because here's the way it works. If I've already filled the contracts that you thought you were in line for, don't worry, because if you're patient and you're fully qualified, your folder is sitting on top of my desk. You are going to be the next guy I call when I have the next available contract. And then things change all the time. There's a little seasonality to our work. So in the fall, things change all the time. There's always opportunities. It gets a little slower in the summer. So it depends when you're watching this video, but you just got to stay patient, do the process, work my process, and I will consider you for the next available route. Okay, last thing. In the description of this video, I want to give you some massive value. There is a link to an app in the description of this video. It's called Upside. You're going to get cash rebates for your fuel purchases. If you have never used any kind of fuel savings plans, fuel savings program, I highly recommend Upside. There's a referral link in the description of this video. I suggest you use it because the first time you use it, they give you a crazy bonus rebate. In some cases, it turns into multiple gallons of free gas. So it depends. They change their promotions all the time, but use the referral link to get into Upside. And the way it works is you always use that app anytime you need to fuel up. You just look at the app to find the gas station that's closest to where you are at that moment. And everybody's participating with this app now. So almost every gas station has a plan. You just find the gas station, you click on it, you accept that gas station, and then all you do is go there and fill up. And you use the same credit card to fill up that you used to register the app. The app is free. You just have to enter your debit card or your credit card into the app and then use that card when you're making the purchases. It's going to keep track of your rebates. And you can set the threshold anywhere you want. I set mine at $20. So anytime I reach $20 in fuel rebates, it automatically puts the cash back into my checking account automatically because I've set the threshold. You can do all this when you sign up on the app. All right, guys. Hopefully, I know I talk a lot, but I want to be clear and I want to explain the whole thing so you understand my process. Okay? So I'll be looking forward to working with you. If you have any other questions, you can send me a text. You can shoot me an email, and we will see if we can get you on the road delivering freight. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye-bye.